It's just the start of the Big 12 and Power 5 talk to come. Listen to JJ and Alex Monday on your drive home. Afternoons from 3 to 6 on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Welcome back. It is another edition. It's another year of First and 12 right here on KSL News Radio. Also heard on the KSL Sports Zone. Alex, Kirry, and Mitch Harper. Thanks for being with us again. Mitch, of course, part of our breakdowns. This is a fun one for us now. We get to break down BYU and Utah. We'll break down BYU for this first hour. We'll get to the Utes next hour. You don't want to miss any of it. It's all brought to you by the folks at Macy's Grocery Store. The freshest fruits and vegetables and from your local farms to your local favorite brands. Macy's, happy shopping. They're back on board again this year. Mitch, let's talk a little bit of BYU offense. 527 yards of total offense. I think before we were doing our pregame yesterday, and I kind of set some personal okay, look, if you want to feel better about this team and you want to feel good about BYU kind of going forward, you got to score in that kind of 35 to 45 point range. And you've got to have like 400 yards of offense. Maybe even run for 150 yards. Check, check, check. All for BYU. 41 points. They get the 41-13 win over SIU. And you got to feel good if you're Kalani because you put up 527 yards of total offense, 348 through the air, 179 on the ground. And they also Mitch, one thing that I noticed too, aside from the scoring of the points and the efficiency from Jake Retzlaff, they ran the ball 47 times. I mean, look, if you want to be a member of the Big 12, those are kind of rushing numbers you've got to put up.
No doubt. And BYU had a balanced attack, and people didn't believe me when I said drop the stat during the game, but BYU last season, no games with 400 total yards or more. Wow. Their highest was 394 against Southern Utah. That's how bad last season's offense was. So to get 527 yards was an accomplishment. I know Jake Retzlaff kind of downplayed the validation piece as he said the team always believed in themselves, but you guys didn't do anything last year. You were a bad offense, and to do this, I think does give Cougar Nation some confidence moving forward that, hey, maybe this team has turned the corner. Now, on the flip side, Southern Illinois was not as good as many thought they could be, but still, you dominated them as such, and that's something I think you can look as a positive. And BYU had explosive playmaking ability through the air. 8 passes of 15 yards or more, highlighted by a 57-yarder. So that is BYU's offense kind of in the heyday with Aaron Roderick, where they're stretching the field, explosive playmaking ability, and they had a physical ground attack. It was the best offensive performance we've seen in at least 2 years from BYU.
Well, let's give a grade, too, for how this offensive line, who, from a self-evaluation standpoint, they were not impressed with themselves last year. This was a big point of problem for this team last year. They changed the offensive line coach in the offseason. TJ Woods comes in. I know that this is a big point of pride for this team. Mitch, how do you think that this first week for the offensive line kind of fared? Obviously, there's a lot of yardage, but I think that there's this perfect amount, too, for them to be able to go, look, we can still work on this, this, and this, because they still didn't even get to 4 yards per carry as a team. They were close. They were right there, but my goodness, I think that it was a good step forward for this offensive line, who just really didn't have a breakout performance at all last season.
If I gave it a grade, it'd probably be a B, a solid B. Braden Kime would probably love to get back that play where he gave up a sack.
Yep.
That was an unfortunate where he just got straight up beat. BYU gave up 2 sacks total, but I thought it was a solid showing, and TJ Woods has a significant influence on this offense, and early returns were a positive, and the belief that they had in Caleb Etienne coming into this season at left tackle, the former Oklahoma State Cowboy, he showed great, I thought. And so BYU is in a good position, and Kalani has had this kind of quiet confidence going into the year where you're wondering, like, what are you seeing that no one else is? And he kept saying, You'll see. You'll have the answers. You'll know.
The Kalani voice already came out. Did you hear the Kalani impersonation early in the season from Mitch? Oh, you're going to see it.
You'll know.
See it come out.
You'll see it.
How about another big question mark? That's something that we were looking at and we're trying to see how this thing was going to play out. The battle at the running back position. L.J. Martin. It turns out he was ready to go. You saw kind of a tale of two halves. They had Hinckley Rapati take the majority of the snaps in the first half. Then they flipped it and had L.J. Martin in the second half take most of those carries. They both got 13 carries. Both of them combined for, I think, just over 125 yards between them. But they both look pretty sharp. Is that kind of what it's going to be, a two-headed monster in the backfield?
I don't expect that to be. I would expect that as we see L.J. Martin continue to settle in, he's going to become that feature back that we've grown accustomed to in this Big 12 conference that's known as basically RBU, or the conference of running backs is this year in the Big 12. That's going to be L.J. Martin eventually. But it's nice that Rapati gave you a nice glimpse of what he can provide, and that was his first game in 2 years. But eventually L.J. Martin's going to emerge as that bell cow, that guy that can get you 22 carries in a game. That's what he's going to provide eventually. In his first game back, coming back from the shoulder, I think they wanted to ease him in, but I thought he looked really good, and he's going to be a special football player for BYU. But that offense showed very well in week 1 against the Salukis. We got to take a timeout. On the other side, we will get to BYU's defense. How did they perform in their game against Southern Illinois? We'll break it down here on 1st and 12, and it's brought to you by Macy's Grocery Store. Happy shopping.